Record to cloud.
Now we're recording.
Okay.
We should
All
do
right.
the
Okay,
Let's
Oh,
show
well,
up
let's
color.
do a summary.
So we are now displaying the envelopes, the sealed envelopes that have ballots inside them. You can see who voted. That was Justin Paglino.
Yeah.
Here is Richard Corzo.
and we had already determined that he intended to register green.
Mary Lou Sanders,
Yep,
Jennifer Peck,
good. That's her address.
Vincent Marufi, Patrick Romano, Paul Rubin. Okay, now, since we haven't looked at before, we got a Martha Kelly, Hartford,
Okay, thank you. I'm checking these off the list.
okay. Michael Harris, he put his name, he didn't put the address, but we know him.
That's his handwriting.
Yeah.
I know Michael.
And he also voted at the event.
Yes,
Laurel Freeman,
a neighbor of mine nearby.
okay.
Yep, that's her. The neat handwriting.
William Kimball,
Oh yeah, that's Keith. He's in
William K. Kimball, K.
yeah,
Keith.
I think he might be registered as William Keith or W. Keith even. I'm not sure.
He was pretty clear. He was green as heck on the list.
Yeah. He was unaffiliated for a long time, but then he ran for Board of Ed with us and
Great.
swapped.
Robert Stuller,
Oh, yeah, we know him.
I know him. The half of us who did do a ballot.
This is the only name I didn't recognize is Craig Maggi. This was mailed in.
Yeah, turns out he's
Oh.
green. No
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, we don't
I
know
looked
him.
him up.
now.
I wonder if he knows Jeff Russell.
Oh, I
No,
don't
that's
know.
a fair question.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Here is Sarah Winter.
Oh, yeah, and that is indeed Sarah Winter's handwriting and the name on up top.
Yeah.
And that's her style too, completeness and certainty. Yep. She's a cloth expert, seamstress.
Ah.
Oh, yeah, I know him. That's Doug Lary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Janine Kimball,
Yep.
related to what,
Yeah, married to Keith.
William. Yep.
I think she's been a green longer than he has.
Michael Westerfield,
Yep. That's his writing. I know him. I sit with him on the board of directors.
Oh, Gifford, does he live down the block from Cass? Isn't she on Gifford or near Gifford?
She's near Gifford.
Oh.
She's on Clifford.
Oh, okay.
Gifford,
Yep.
Clifford. Okay, this is John Magnesi, my neighbor here in Wallingford.
Okay.
And I'll full confession, this one is unsealed.
Ah,
Peter Gosselin picked these up at the PO box, and he said this was I guess the first one he received, and he opened it not knowing what he was receiving. It was before we told him that ballots were coming in.
oh, okay. Well,
But if he looked at it, he didn't tell me what he saw.
okay, fair enough.
This is Jeff Russell.
That's neater than Jeff usually writes, but the East Glastonbury is familiar.
Yep.
Notice it's missing an N.
Glastonbury. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He I said he's dyslexic.
Yes, he has certain troubles. Yes.
Sherry Conroy from Wolcott.
Okay.
Also neat and complete. Wow. Well,
Richard Conroy, her husband.
Okay. Both greens.
Brian Gay,
Certainly a green.
now in Middletown.
Yep.
Paul Garlinghouse.
Okay.
He's a lawyer, so his handwriting's not so neat.
Yep. True, but I looked him up and he's still green.
Yep. Laura Tebbets. She's
Yes,
still in Cheshire.
I had
She's
a
in
little
Cheshire.
trouble
Dustin is
because I
moved.
didn't
That's
get
the
the
move,
spelling right,
but she's in,
but that is the spelling that worked.
Yeah, and that's Dustin's mother, isn't it?
yeah.
Jean Dismay.
Yep.
David Bedell.
Yeah.
And this
And
McAllister.
Lyndon? Yeah, there's the Lyndon M. Okay. And that does look like his handwriting.
Of New London.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and we did
Yeah.
the voter list has him with a space between the C and the A, which was confusing, but we found him in the end.
That's it.
And that's all. That should 27
Yep.
ballots.
And we have confirmed 25 of those by looking in the January 30th voter list, and 2 others have been discussed and the issues dealt with. McAllister was simply found after adding a space between the C and the A. And Richard Corzo, we have reason to believe, tried to register green, currently seems to be unaffiliated, very likely an issue with the registrar, and are we allowed to register in Danbury as green? So we will look into that, but accept the ballot at this time from these 27 people.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I am sitting here just unsealing things, and I'll separate ballots out without looking at without unfolding them, and I guess give each of them a number so we could actually go back and match up the ballot with a line on your spreadsheet.
Sure, I would suggest we add that number after the envelopes have been
Yeah,
removed
shunted
in a
away.
separate step.
Yeah. Right now I'm just unsealing so I can just grab out the contents without even
Great,
looking.
okay.
Rona,
So,
can you explain that process to me again?
Okay. Oh, it's going to get better. I am using an envelope opener to open the envelopes now. I'm not taking the ballots out yet. And then, why is this one got
Over here.
hung up on something? On a label?
Yeah, don't tear up the
Ballot, yeah. So I'm just opening the ballots, envelopes without looking at the ballots at all. And then,
I was confused about the number. What you need to give it a number because
Doug's spreadsheet has numbers 1 through 27.
Okay.
If we ever want to re-verify the votes, we'll want to be able to know compare ballot number 1 with what was written on line number 1, for
okay, but on
example,
Doug's
without
spreadsheet,
knowing the name of the person who
without
submitted
okay.
it.
So that's
Does
a
that make
separate.
sense?
Yes, I just wasn't sure if there were names attached to the numbers on Doug's
No,
sheet, but
no, there
Yeah.
are
Not at all.
intentionally, the names
I just wanted
and the
that clear.
numbers are not attached.
I wanted that clear for the record. Thank you.
Good. And I recommend that after today, when I send out the spreadsheet to whoever I'm supposed to share it with, that somebody actually do that ballot comparison to make sure my data entry matches the ballots.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just like Connecticut election audit folks did when they watched people handle ballots.
Yeah,
Right.
when we did this in person, we would have somebody leaning over your shoulder. Looking
Yes.
at,
Which is really
well,
like the
and-
election audit.
and-
two
And we'll
people.
be able to do that today if I put the spreadsheet up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can share your screen.
Yep, okay.
I always set things that anyone can share,
Yeah, I think
just one
during
at a
the
time.
counting, we should display
During
the
the counting,
Play the
we'll be
ballot.
seeing you in the envelope, I
Yeah.
mean, you in the ballot.
So this
And
one doesn't-
then later, as I go through my work, I'll share the screen so you can see what I'm doing.
Okay,
So I'll make entries as you go, but then we can check them today before we do any work with them. And
okay,
then maybe somebody else can check it afterwards, if they want to.
Okay, and this one, this is Justin's, it wasn't really sealed. Okay, so now the ballots,
Oh, wait, before you take them out, mix them up.
okay,
So they're not in the order of the numbers.
okay. This will be very random. Okay,
And
and you can,
Okay, I'm gonna put this down so you
you
can
want
see her
to,
removing them, and
yeah, you,
then I'm gonna number each one. Or
I
no,
guess
first,
in-
okay, first take them all out,
yeah.
and then I'm gonna mix them up again.
And I'm
Yes, yes.
very randomly taking out of a pile. I have not yet found a check among the ballots at this point.
Well, that's right, we
We'll see.
get money with the,
Yeah, we were hoping that maybe a couple people would.
I should have. That would have been the cheaper way. Yes.
Yeah. You know, you and Bob both agree that you prefer to get things like checks rather than pay the online fees. But I've noticed that Patrick just likes, you know, the convenience of dealing with
Sure.
Anadot because they make record keeping kind of easier.
Yes, and both are good points. I would recommend use Anadot for small contributions. And, if you're donating $1,000 or more, maybe we ought to do it by check.
What did the fundraiser bring in?
It
About,
was between $500 and $1,000. Like,
oh,
it was like 500 before the raffle items started coming through. I think, I mean,
I saw a figure just short of 1,000.
yeah, I think it was just short of 1,000, but there were also in-kind donations.
okay, well, so we had a good time and we made $1,000. That's good.
Yeah, and for some people, like for someone like Paul, who's in Norwich, where there really isn't a Green Party, but he's been doing petitioning, he really enjoyed like,
Oh, yeah. He had a great time. He was telling me about it.
yeah.
I think that was important for him. He's done more than half of the petitioning himself.
I did not see him in New Haven today. So I don't know if he came early and left early when people were
He
just
said he was going to
gathering.
go, but he has
because
cats and other obligations in life. Things come up.
he had mentioned yesterday that he would try to get there at 11:30 and do petitioning before any event started.
Yep.
But I don't know. I didn't get there until about 12:05 and I did not see Paul.
I recall that his strategy was before and after.
Yeah.
So
And
he could easily have said, I've done my before, I'll come back.
this is just heavy paper, I think.
Yeah.
I got a deal on some heavy duty 24-pound paper at BJ's that was super cheap. So some of my stuff is on paper that is better than it deserves to be on. That just, if the 24-pound is cheaper than the 20 pounds, like,
There you go.
yeah, no checks. But
Bummer.
I guess if you number those 1 to 27, then it'll be a new count. And here are all the envelopes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Great.
I'm gonna
So we
just
can save
pick
the
up a little
envelope
more.
for posterity. At least a while.
Yeah. I'd still have the 2020 ones. I think I'll be able to throw them out once I replace them with the 2024s.
I think I'm holding a box even older than that.
You might be.
Yeah. I was supposed to get it to you, but you've been here about 8 times since, and it's way over there on the bottom of the stack. Not a good sign.
Well, by recording each ballot, we'll have a digital record.
Yes, that's great.
We don't necessarily have to keep the paper.
Right.
Yeah, good point there.
Should we spotlight you again? Or have you, or
yeah,
no
okay.
number?
I think let me number them.
Yeah.
And make sure we've got 27.
Yep.
And then we'll spotlight you when you hold it up.
Yeah.
You probably don't, you may not remember an exact
And-
number, but do you remember if you had more ballots 4 years ago or less?
But we did have more. We had over 100, I believe, 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 100, maybe 120, something like that.
No,
Wow.
that would
But it
have
was
been,
a little more competitive race. Um,
actually, we had, I think, 36 last time.
that's all? Wow.
And why my spreadsheet had 40 rows, when we started the day, now has 27 rows.
What was I thinking we had
But we
more?
used to get about 120 to 180 for our internal elections and perhaps some primaries.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
maybe
Okay.
that's what I'm remembering, because I was downstairs at some place one time when people were counting. I was
Yep.
down there with a few people, I remember, and there were a lot, but that probably wasn't internal.
That was
Yeah.
an internal back when we were visiting Portland Senior Center.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and over the years, we've improved this technique considerably. And I think that showing them on the screen stuff that we introduced in Portland, Dagmar and David were doing the Vanna White type presentation with, and here's our ballot. And that
Yeah,
worked
there
pretty
was
well.
a camcorder there.
Yep. So we broadcast that while many of us were there in person. So that was great.
Thanks, Doug. I claim the Vanna White role.
Well,
Okay, I got 27 numbers.
okay, great.
So we're going to begin tallying, right? And so Doug's going to write it down. I don't know if, do you want to write down on
I can,
pen and paper or?
I will write, let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I meant to print one before I left this morning, but I was going slower than my
Right,
15.
so ballot number 1, marked in the top corner.
Yep.
And
Let me spotlight
yeah,
you
yeah,
so we
spotlight,
can
and then what do we see?
why does it spotlight here?
Okay. Yes, I see David. And I see Jill and none of the above.
Okay,
I would guess that Mary should concur.
Right?
I should say it because I have to type it.
Yep.
And then Mary can do the Doug's got it right or not.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, Jill 1, none of the above 2.
Okay. Pretty clear.
Right. And I'm doing these in the numerical order. Ballot number 2.
Okay. Hold on. Jill
Okay.
Stein, number 1. Jessica Sherman, number 2.
Jasmine.
Jorge, 3. And
Jean,
see,
4
Greg.
is
4 is a write-in. Write-in 1, who will be Jean Dismay. And number 5 was none of the above. So that's our first write-in. And so from here on, I'm using W1 as the symbol in the spreadsheet for
Jean.
Jean Dismay.
Okay, Jean is.
Okay, and this is our third ballot.
This is our third.
Jill Stein is number 1. I now have a new.
Oh, Mary Ann Williamson, number 2.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get that notation made because I'm going to be using it a lot. Okay.
You have a
And
plated woodpecker here?
Possibly. I haven't seen it yet. I've got a lot of other woodpeckers.
okay, Mary Ann Williamson is right in 2 from here on after. Okay, so, and she gets the W2 is in slot 2, rank 2. And Jasmine Sherman is ranked as 3rd. I do not see a 4th.
Correct.
Okay. This is going pretty well, considering we're in 3 different places.
Yeah.
This has only Jill Stein with an X, no ranking, but that's pretty clear what the intent is.
Yeah.
Nothing else is marked. Okay, here we have Jill Stein in position 1, rank 1, Jasmine Sherman in rank 2, and Jorge Zavala in ranking 3, and no other markings.
Correct.
That was number 5.
Yeah, that was number 5.
Okay, number 6 on deck. And this appears to have that Jill Stein in ranking 1, Jorge Zala in ranking 2, Jasmine Sherman in ranking 3, and no other markings.
Correct.
Okay, here we go. Jill Stein in number 1, Jorge Zavala in number 2, and Jasmine Sherman in number 3, which matches ballot 6, and this is ballot 7, I assume?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, it's not ballot 6 the second time. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah. That was,
They just
Yep,
happen to
same
be,
vote, so,
yep, okay, and
I'm
that's
not trying to
why
have
they
someone
look
both
so
sides.
similar. Okay, very good.
yeah.
Just wanted to be sure that we weren't making a
Yeah.
office slip.
Could be,
Number
with
8,
many ballots, that might be, one family member supervising and forcing their partner to vote the same way.
You never know.
yeah, with
Although
these,
Although
There
you
is
shuffled
that.
them up, both of you
Oh.
shuffled those up, so.
That's right. They,
That's right. So
yeah, good
it's
point.
unlikely that a couple would
Well,
be
they
next.
might have been.
Yeah, would
Yep, okay, so
Oh.
here we have some challenged handwriting, but I see Jill Stein in ranking 1, and Jasmine Sherman in ranking 2, and Jorge Zavala in ranking 3.
And
Yeah.
that's, which
No other
ballot is
marks.
that? Number 8?
Yeah, number 8.
Good.
Correct.
I suppose, if we have to do a audit or something, maybe we should show the number. That's number 9.
I like that. Okay, number 9. Okay, again, we have Jill Stein in ranking 1, Jasmine Sherman again in ranking 2, and Jorge Zavala in ranking 3. And just to be clear, that means that ballot 9, which you just showed, is the same as ballot 8.
correct.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And
Yes,
also
I think
the
showing the
same
number
as
is good.
ballot 5.
Wait. Wait, 8.
Okay,
Oh, yes, yeah, you're right.
okay. Just want to be sure, but I like showing the numbers. That's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
number 10.
And number 10. Okay, this is Jill, followed by Jasmine,
Followed by
by
Jorge.
Jorge Zavala. Okay,
Correct.
that's a popular vote. Looking for number 11. Yes, and there it is. Okay. Okay. Oh, there we go. Jasmine Sherman in ranking 1, Jill Stein in ranking 2, Jorge Zavala in ranking 3. No other marks. Oh, no, I'm wrong. None of the above is number 4.
Correct.
Yep.
Not sure what that means. There, you figure it out.
12. Okay, let's see 12. None of the above is ranking 1 with no other votes.
And no write-ins.
Correct.
Well, so we got our one uncommitted, whatever, protest voter.
Yep. We
Correct.
expected one,
Yeah.
at least. Here's ballot 13 now coming up. And I see only Jill Stein marked with an X and no other indication of who else could be ranked. So that's going to be an exhausted ballot. It will get applied to Jill, but if it has any leftover, there's nobody to give it to. 14. Okay.
14.
And similarly, this one has only Jill as ranking 1. Jill Stein, number 1. Waiting for
Correct.
15 next. 15. Okay. Oh, Jorge Zavala as ranking 1. Jill Stein as ranking 2. Well, hold on. Let me get that on the right line. Jill Stein is ranking 2 and Jasmine Sherman as ranking 3. And no other marks. I'm looking for 16. And there it is. Yep.
Yeah, 16.
16, looking good. Now let's see the votes. We have 2 rankings here. Jill Stein ranked 1st and Jasmine Sherman ranked 2nd.
Correct.
That's going smoothly. Here's 17 coming up. And here I see Jill Stein marked with an X, and that's the only vote shown. All else is blank.
Correct.
This is ballot 18 being shown now. And the votes are Jill Stein, number 1, and none of the above is in position 2, rank 2.
Correct.
This is ballot 19. And it has a single ranking of Jill Stein as number 1. So that voter has no ranking, just Jill. Here's number 20. Okay, we have the candidates on the left all marked. Jill Stein as the 1st ranking, Jasmine Sherman as the 2nd ranking, and Jorge Zavala as the 3rd ranking.
Correct.
And no other marks. Okay, ballot 21. Yep, David's showing us the top corner, and then while the paper's still in view, folding it so we can see the bottom of the ballot where the voting occurred. Jill Stein is here ranked number 21 as ranking 1. Jorge Zavala is in ranking 2, and none of the above is in ranking 3.
Correct.
22. Okay, this one has only Jill Stein marked with the digit 1, and that's how it's going to be recorded, as a Jill Stein in rank 1.
Correct.
Ballot 23 is now being shown. And it has 2 candidates marked, Jill Stein as rank 1, Jorge Zavala as rank 2. No other marks. Ballot 24. This has 3 candidates marked clearly enough, and the order is Jill Stein in rank 1, Jasmine Sherman in rank 2, and Jorge Zavala in rank 3.
Correct.
No other marks. looking for ballot 25. Here it is. And this is, again, a none of the above in rank 1 and no other marks.
Correct.
Waiting for 26. I'm seeing the middle, not the corner. There's the corner, 26. Yep. Okay, and here we have 3 candidates marked, and the rankings are Jill Stein in ranking 1, Jasmine Sherman in ranking 2, Jorge Zavala in ranking 3. No other marks.
Correct.
This is going pretty smoothly.
Mhm.
27 is in front of us now. David's going to show us the lower portion. Again, 3 candidates are marked. The order is Jill Stein in ranking 1, Jorge Zavala in ranking 2, and Jasmine Sherman in ranking 3 with no other marks.
Correct.
Well, that gives
No other
us
ballots.
27.
Hang up my sleeve.
Okay, great. Might I suggest that I read them back from my spreadsheet?
Uh-oh.
Do you want to show your spreadsheet
Yeah,
as
how about
well?
I show the spreadsheet and therefore people can absorb them in the order they like?
Here, okay, you're spotlighted now.
Okay,
Or you can share screen if you prefer.
yes, I will. Hold on, let me do that. I see myself spotlighted and I am now going to share a screen. And yes, that's the right one. Okay, folks. So this is the top row 1 over here. Basically, this shape comes to us from an old program that Chris Riley used to use, and I just mimicked its inputs. So you can see all the things going in. We only used 2 write-ins today, so I'm going to change write-in 3 to
None of the above?
no, none of the above is already available to us.
Oh,
Yep.
Yep, so right in 3. Okay,
Okay.
great. So here we have the candidates, SH for Jasmine Sherman, ST for Jill Stein. These are the first 2 letters of their last name. And Jorge Zavala, ZA. Then we have the abbreviation NO for none of the above. And we have W. You can see it?
yeah, well, it's also appropriate because it's kind of
Yep.
the protest. It's the
Yes,
no,
it's a protest
Oh,
vote,
no,
essentially.
got it.
Yes, and that carries over from Chris Riley's work long ago. He used that. So I just continued it. W1 is Jean Dismay. W2 is Marianne Williamson. And we did not get any other write-ins, so I made space for up to 6 in case we needed it. I also have a code EX for exhausted. It's possible, for instance, on those ballots where only 1 candidate was marked, that the last fractional delegate needs some votes to decide which of the candidates gets that last delegate seat. Typically, the first several are easy, proportional, but the last few are much more difficult and your rankings may matter. And so voters who only voted for 1 rank or even 2 could be underrepresented, and any portion of their vote not used will go into the exhausted candidate column, essentially saying their ballot wasn't sufficient to have an influence to this extent. That's something we might want to emphasize with our voters, that even ranking the ones you don't like helps us if we get down to the last delegate and it's a choice between, well, not many people supported this one and not many people supported that one, but enough did so that you might want to express a preference.
I have a question about how that works.
Yeah.
So if somebody chose 1 candidate and put it in the first rank, and then they chose none of the above at the second place,
Yep.
does that still apply?
Well, if very few people voted for the person you put in slot one, for instance, Jesse Ventura was a write-in candidate previously. If very few people pick a write-in, then all of your vote goes to support that person. And only once that candidate gets eliminated does your second vote get looked at. So likely for a rare, for a protest vote, your protest vote will be noted briefly, then your protest voter or candidate will get eliminated, and then your none of the above will be your final vote. The one that
What if somebody ranks their preferred candidate in first, second, and third place? What happens?
well, I was expecting that sort of interesting voting. We've had it before. I am quite content with voter intent in this scale. Tabulator machine that's automated might have trouble. When I see two candidates with the same ranking or more, I simply give them all the rank one, but only a third vote.
I'm asking the opposite though. If somebody wants a particular candidate and they put their name in first, second, and third place,
They will all have the same impact because their votes already applied at their first choice.
okay.
If their candidate gets eliminated, well, then their second and third choices that were identical anywhere in their list won't matter because that candidate's eliminated. So
Okay.
I can tolerate a lot of interesting voter intent because that's your role, Mary. If we get into a situation that requires a tough decision, it's good to have already picked who's going to make that decision. And early in our meeting, we picked you, Mary, as the moderator to make those tough decisions. We could all weigh in on the issue, but you would be the decider.
Okay, so it's appropriate that I'm asking these questions.
Indeed it is, especially for future education. I would note that I did not notice any creative voting. Maybe we will notice as we review these ballots, which we're about to do. So having explained the top of the spreadsheet, let me move next to rows 14, 15, and 16. We have 9 delegates to be awarded. Today, we will decide how many go to which candidates. At our next state central committee meeting, we will decide which persons are those delegates. For instance, if we have a bunch of Stein supporters, they would reasonably be among the people considered to be the Stein delegates. And if we have somebody who was a avid none of the above, well then, they might be the person who represents that point of view as a delegate, if that gets enough votes. I'm here at row 15, where we enter the number of valid ballots, because the number of valid ballots matters. It determines what the threshold is for winning a delegate. As I entered 27 valid ballots, the mathematics in the spreadsheet showed me at row 17, and that will be used elsewhere, that it takes 25 votes to win a delegate seat. The concept here is that if 27 people have 9 votes apiece, this is just to keep things more like integers, there are 243 votes possible here, and the way I'm going to be calculating them. And if you get 25, only 9 of you can get 25, the 9 delegates. And anybody who gets 24 has no chance of becoming a candidate with a delegate.
Okay,
So,
and for Connecticut, we're talking about 7 delegates, aren't we? Or no, delegates.
9.
Oh, it's 9.
It's
It was
9.
11 last time, we've lost a couple because we didn't win as many races and other reasons. More states got their minimum by simply waving their hand that they existed.
Right, and
And,
this is something, this is determined by the national party's, what do you call it, delegate allocation committee?
Tabulation apportionment
Apportion.
committee, which ironically I was on.
Mhm.
So I wrote the spreadsheet for that, and was aware that we got only 9, largely because other states were going to be represented. They get the minimum of 4 just for existing, and that influenced the larger 10 states or so. Each lost about a delegate to support other states getting in. Okay, so I'm going to be looking for candidates who got 25 votes. Let me first read off the votes with you. I've scrolled up. And let me roll. Well, okay. Okay, so 1 through 27 are now showing on your screen at the left. And this will be pretty small on some people's screens, but you can zoom your browser window if you care to. The first ballot I have as Stein, none of the above.
Mhm.
Okay, that matches the ballot.
Maybe check your.
It
tally.
checks what I have.
Okay, great. Next one, ballot 2, Stein, Sherman, Zavala, write-in 1,
Correct.
none of the above. Write-in 1 is
That's-
Jane Dismay.
Wait, that was number 2?
That was number 2.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is that,
Yeah,
oh,
okay,
the,
yeah.
your number?
Yeah, yeah,
that's-
I'm looking at them, at the actual ballots.
Yeah,
Okay, I just had them mixed up.
Okay. Are you ready for ballot 3?
Yes,
Okay, I have recorded Stein and write-in 2, which was Marianne Williamson, and then Sherman, Jasmine Sherman.
oh, Sherman was 3 in that one?
That's what I recorded. Is that correct?
Okay. Oh, yes, I missed Sherman. Okay, I corrected
Good.
mine.
Okay, very good. Good to have a review. Ballot 4, I have Stein and only Stein.
Same here.
Okay, ballot 5, I have Stein, Sherman, Zavala, and nothing else.
Okay.
yeah,
6.
Okay, good. Number 6, Stein, Zavala, Sherman.
Yep,
Number 7 is the same, Stein, Zavala, Sherman.
Yep.
Number 8, Stein, then Sherman, then Zavala.
Yep.
Number 9, Stein, Sherman, Zavala, which is the same as 8.
Right.
Number 10, I have the same also, Stein, Sherman, Zavala. At 11, different stuff. Sherman first, Stein second, Zavala third, none of the above in fourth.
Yeah.
Now at 12, none of the above and nothing else. A clear vote. 13, Stein and only Stein. 14, Stein and only Stein. 15, Zavala, Stein, Sherman, and nothing after. 16, I have Stein and then Sherman and nothing after. 17, I have Stein only. 18, Stein, followed by none of the above. 19, Stein, and only Stein. 20, Stein, Sherman, Zavala. 21, Stein, Zavala, none of the above. 22, Stein, only Stein, nothing else. 23, Stein, followed by Zavala, and nothing after. 24, Stein, Sherman, Zavala. 25, none of the above with nothing following it. 26, Stein, Sherman, Zavala. And the last ballot, 27, Stein, Zavala, Sherman.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, look.
so in row 49 of my spreadsheet, we've added up the valid count of entries in ranking 1 as 27, which makes sense. We have 27 ballots. Each of them has at least one marking. No ballot was blank. We had only 19, roughly 2/3 of the voters express a second ranking.
Hmm.
That will cause an issue.
That's low, yeah.
I'll try to arrange a discussion of this so that Mary can weigh in as our moderator. In the third ranking, just barely half of our people, 15, made a third ranking. Very few people made a fourth ranking, just 2. And only a single person ranked a 5th. So Mary, here's the issue. Just from having seen all this and heard all this, you probably recognize that Jill Stein's going to get a lot of the delegates.
Right.
What tends to happen in this when people don't use enough rankings is that we don't know what their other choice would have been now that their first choice has been eliminated. Let's see if I can find an example here that would help emphasize this. Here we go. At row 20, ballot 23, that ballot is Stein followed by Zavala and nothing else. So if Zavala gets eliminated, voter 23 hasn't left us any other awareness that would help impact the last delegate. I mean, like most of his vote will go to Jill Stein, but there'll be little fractions of votes that, Jill had enough for 8 or 7 or 6 or some number, and there'll be little fractions of votes left over that have to go to somebody.
Yeah,
And this
is
voter,
this is very confusing to me because how I assumed the delegates would be awarded. I assumed that a first place rank would carry so many points, a second place rank would carry so many points, a third place so many points, and so on.
Yep.
And so they in
I'm
first
familiar
place
with that approach, Mary.
might get 5 points, and second place might get 4 points, blah blah blah. So they would only be a candidate would only be awarded points for however many times their name showed up on the ballots, and it wouldn't matter how many blank spaces there are. That's how I thought it was tabulated.
As it turns out, ranked choice voting, in the way we have used it for a long time now, isn't by points as you described, though I'm familiar with that because it's relatively easy, and so some organizations use that. But here, your first choice gets all of your weight if it can be used to support your candidate. As soon as it can't be used for your candidate, however, you get your vote back, at least the part of your vote that hasn't been used yet, so that it can be applied to your second choice. And sometimes it matters whether or not you have a second choice. So we'll see an example of that. But what I'm asking, Mary and crowd, is suppose we get to the end and the first 8 delegates were relatively easy to decide which candidates they go to. The last one's usually the difficult one. What if the last delegate doesn't have, my threshold here was 25 votes? This can happen if people didn't mention their second and third choices. You can wind up looking for delegate 9 and having very few votes left, maybe not enough to make 25. And so one approach is you award that 9th delegate to none of the above because no candidate still in the race had enough votes to get awarded a delegate. This keeps a very unpopular candidate from getting a delegate just by still existing. You don't want somebody who only got voted on by one person to get seated just because they're still there.
And explain to me how that threshold was determined.
Sure.
Explain to me what that number 25 represents.
25. First, let me clear up an assumption here. In traditional single transferable vote, you'd get 1 vote per voter. For mathematics simplicity, it tends to help people understand when there are multiple candidate races. I gave them 1 vote per delegate, 9. Could have been done as a 1, but you'd get into little teeny fractions pretty quick. So if every person who voted gets 9 votes and there are 27 ballots, 27 voters, we're expecting 243 votes. Martha Kelly is here, and I'm going to let her in. There we are. So if there are 243 possible votes, only 9 will get seated, which is the number we get, if 25 is the threshold, because 9 times 25 is 225, and that doesn't leave enough votes to award a 10th delegate, and we don't want to anoint a 10th delegate because GPUS won't take them.
Okay.
So
Doug, can you read
25 was
that?
calculated as basically the number that would keep it from going over 9.
Okay.
Doug, can you read
No,
out?
I can't see that whole phrase there. It says decide in advance if no candidate has sufficient votes. What does that whole line read?
Okay, I'll read it to you because it's the issue we are deciding right now.
Right.
Decide in advance. If no candidate has sufficient votes for the last seat or seats due to exhausted ballots. Exhausted ballots are the ones where they made no second or third choices, and they have no opinion left to express. Are those seats granted to none of the above because, well, there was no sufficient vote? Or do we give the last delegate to whoever has the greatest number of votes still left, even if it isn't enough for the threshold? So let's
Is
see if
this
I can
something
read
that
that
might
up.
be challenged? Is this something that's challengeable at the convention?
No, this is up to us to decide. Typically, this gets decided ahead of time. It's a question that used to be in Chris Riley's shareware software. I've raised this issue several times before. We have a notable example in our history, Mary. Maybe you were there for it. In Portland, long ago, for an internal election, Rolf Moyer was one of the candidates. Now, Mike DeRosa was also a candidate. A lot of the people who voted for Mike voted only for Mike and did not rank any other choice. Much like you see here today, many people voted for Jill Stein and nobody else. So it's a similar example. As we counted the votes, Rolf had very few. but he had enough to stay in the race and be sort of the squeaker guy left in the race by the time we had awarded our the first two co-chairs. The third co-chair race was the one he was running for, but he didn't have enough votes to be granted it by the rule of making the threshold. I don't recall the exact number at the time, but he had some votes, but not enough votes. And so he was essentially an underpopular candidate, but he was less unpopular than whoever was in fourth or fifth or last place. And I announced it as he had not been elected, and we therefore had a vacancy. And that was a tough moment in the convention. And later in the year, others were treating him as a co-chair. And I think it's important that this decision be made before we know who that might be.
Right.
I want to bring up one other possibility, though it's in some ways seems too simple. We're talking about proportional representation.
Mhm.
So I saw that conveniently we have 9 delegates and 27 ballots. And on these 27 ballots, 22 people, I think, chose Jill Stein as their first choice.
Correct.
So
Or
would it make any sense to say, well, her 21 of her 22 votes were enough to get her 7 delegates, and we can use the other first choice. I think Jasmine got a first choice and Jorge got a first choice, and Jill would have one leftover first choice, and go to the second choice to determine who gets those last 2. Does that make sense, or is it so attractively simple that it's not right?
Oh.
well, it is not what we advertised, though it is likely how it will turn out. So you're on the right track that, yes, if you wanted a preview of how it's likely to go, MSNBC has a numbers geek who does this sort of stuff and predicts how things will happen. But yes, that's a good prediction of our outcome before we calculate it.
Yeah.
Predicting that Jill Stein will get 7 delegates. Well,
Yes, it seems very likely.
I don't know what the split is with
possible
the
that
other.
the others didn't get enough first place rankings that one of them will be eliminated. And
Right.
I propose we walk through the usual process and come to a result. And I can demonstrate
Let's
that.
see.
It takes a long time. There are a lot of manual steps. But I suggest I start, and that
Sure.
anybody who is interested in why I'm doing something as I explain it can chime in.
Can I ask a
Well, I
question?
think. Well, let me think. Yeah. Go, Mary.
Well, I want to ask the question if, like, okay, we can just tell how many votes Jill Stein has in first place, but if Jorge and Jasmine have equal amounts of second place rankings, will one of them still be eliminated?
I think first we would be
It's certainly
eliminating
possible.
Mary Ann Williamson and G.
Wait. Mary, we have to look at their first place rankings first.
Yeah.
Both of those achieved some first choice rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
All right.
So, for instance, Jasmine Sherman, if she had a strong support from 3 of our 27 voters, would very likely wind up with a delegate. But if she had support from only 2 of our many voters in first place, then it is not certain yet.
Okay, actually, I'm looking at the list. Am I correct?
looks like-
Sherman only got 1 first place voice.
And so did
Well,
Zavala only get
Wait,
one,
wait, I'm not seeing Zavala.
number 15.
Oh,
Ballot
he's not,
15.
he's not showing on number 15. That's why I can't see
I'm
it.
sorry.
Yeah, Zavala was first place in 15.
Okay.
Yeah, can you unhide some of those?
Yes, yes, I can. It's
17?
just that I'm having the meeting go over my spreadsheet. So let me try to get my spreadsheet and the meeting there. Now they're not overlapping, so I can get to the controls. Okay,
Okay, that's
there we go.
good. Yeah, there
There's
we go.
1
Now I
through
see everything.
27 all showing.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah, I would suggest we run the regular process and see what pans out.
okay, good. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
I will demonstrate how I did this in 2020, and feel free to interrupt with questions. And we have all the votes, we have all the ballots. If anybody thinks I've done this wrong or sees an error,
Can
we
I
can,
just, can I take
reconvene.
30, can I take 30 seconds to tell Martha what we did?
Yes, of course.
Martha, they showed every envelope up to the camera. While this is being recorded, while the envelopes were all still sealed to get a proper count and to validate that they all came from Greens.
Yeah,
And then they opened up the envelopes and took everything out and shuffled them up without opening the paper. And David went through and numbered the back of each ballot to make sure we had a proper count again. And then
Good.
he opened each ballot and showed it up to the camera with the number on it and the vote, the rankings, and Doug entered it into the spreadsheet, and I was deemed moderator and ballot, agreed with what was being recorded.
Okay,
And so now Doug is gonna do the calculations, now that everything has been verified.
awesome. I heard part of the discussion here
Yeah,
about
all right.
what's going on.
It was a very transparent and legitimate process.
Yeah,
All right.
And we'll be able to post the video as well if people want to see it.
Sure. I think it should be interesting to those who find ranked choice voting interesting or are curious about it and aren't sure about it yet. Okay, so on the left here in rows 21 through 47, I have our 27 ballots listed. I'm going to sort those rows. And why, you'll see in a moment. What I'm going to try to do is what you've already discussed. I'm looking for how many voters did what, and I want to be able to see it so that when I enter numbers, I can be confident I'm putting them in the right places. So I'm going to sort the ballots in the order of the ranking one. So you'll see a little sort box coming up here. Sorting from top to bottom, and I'm sorting by column B, which is our first ranking.
So nothing else moves, right?
Correct. Only the highlighted rows here move, and those rows are the ones that hold ballot information.
Oh, but so they're all gonna move at the same time, not just that one column of the first ranking?
You bet. You notice the whole area is grayed out.
Right.
That means the entire row moves together.
All right.
We could do it with just column B, but that would really make a mess of our voting. So
Okay.
make sure I don't do that. It's the kind of thing that could go wrong, and that's why we have a tape, and that's why we have the ability to completely redo this election from the ballots, should we have any question about how it went. So I'm going to sort next by column C, where the ranking twos are. And similarly, I'm just marching through the rankings so that similar ballots are put near each other in the spreadsheet solely for my convenience as I enter the votes.
So the row across is separated from each other That's what I was confused
Yes.
about. Okay,
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, each row is going to remain
Yeah.
solid, so to speak. It's not going to get wiggly with the voter next to them.
okay.
Mhm.
So I'm simply sorting by the several rankings here so that
Yeah. I don't
ballots
think
that are similar will show next to each other,
Yeah.
and that
I
helps
think
me
that covers-
enter
yeah.
the data faster.
Martha, we had two write-ins on second place. One was Jean DeMay, and the other was Marianne Williams.
Oh,
Okay, so I have sorted in alphabetic order all the ballots by rank 1. Notice that none of the above happens to sort first because the abbreviation NO comes before other abbreviations. And there are 2 of them. There are then a single vote with Sherman as the first rank. And then that's followed by 23, I think, ballots. Yes, 23 with Stein in first place. And the last candidate who has a first place entry is Zavala. And there's just one of those where he's first. So that's just sort of a quick, this is what the newspaper would report, and the counting's beginning, and here's our first initial count. Because they tend to look at these rankings one at a time. So I'm going to now, working on the right-hand side of my spreadsheet, you see I've highlighted a bunch of entries that all say 11. Well, that's from 2020. I left them in sort of as an example of how this goes. So I'm going to delete all those 2020 votes there. And now everything reads 0 votes so far. Now in round 1, which is the right-hand area of the screen here, I'm going to color it just so people know that that's the area we're working in. And I'm going to color it, say, blue for new. So that's the area I'm working in. And I'm going to award the 9 votes per ballot completely to none of the above for the first ballot and the second ballot. So like this. You might by now see why I wanted to sort them. It makes the entry a lot easier. Those were all the Stein ones, and now the single is Zavala here.
And there should be a single Sherman as well.
Yeah, you got that first.
Okay.
Yes, up here at the top.
Oh,
the
yeah.
single
Oh,
Sherman.
sorry about that. I missed that one.
Yeah, okay, that's quite fine. I'm going to, okay. So here's our beginning. Remember, we had 27 ballots, each of whom were granted 9 votes. You can see that here, all the entries are 9s. And the sum
thank you.
of the 4 candidates who got a first place ranking is 243, as we earlier talked about. 9 times 27.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'm now removing some numbers here at the bottom that are left over from 2020. Great. Okay. Okay, so I show the sum below in row 49, where I'm now highlighting with the cursor. And so the sum of votes for Sherman in round 1 is 9. Our threshold is 25. So far, Sherman has not received a delegate. Might if things turn out differently soon. So I'm going to enter no delegates awarded at this moment in round 1 to Sherman. To Stein, who has 207 votes. As discussed earlier, that was 23 of 9 votes each. That grants her 8.28 delegates. Since I can't cut these people up, they're real integer people, so far, Jill will get 8 of the 9. And so, as is common for this sort of multiple votes for multiple candidates, but one candidate is far ahead of the others, that wasn't an unlikely outcome. You know, it's not surprising or startling, given that we have this great big row of 23 votes for Jill Stein in first place. So obviously she's going to be well represented in the delegates. In the column here for Zavala, like Sherman, Jorge has less than a full delegate's worth. He has not met the 25 threshold. And so I am awarding him no delegates in round 1. You know, maybe in some other round he'll get lucky. And in round 1, we have exactly 18 votes expressed for none of the above. Now, had there been a third person who put none of the above in rank 1, this would have been 27. That would have been sufficient over the threshold to award none of the above a delegate. But that did not happen. So far, none of the above has not made the grade, so to speak. So far in round 1, Jill Stein has gotten 8 here. And our other potential candidates voted so far in the observation of their ballots. I got none so far. Okay. Now I need to get a little bit more of my screen showing, so I'm going to change where the split here is. Hold on a moment. And there we go. Okay. And I'm making a small correction here to the name initials of the candidates, where I left some 2020 stuff in and want some more current initials for Sherman, Stein, Zavala, none of the above, write-ins 1 through 6, and exhausted. Okay. So far, that's how we're going. Let's see here. So I'm going to enter now the votes in round 1. Rank 1, entries counted, integers. Okay. So Sherman got 1 in first place. Jill got 23 in first place. Zavala got 1, and Noda got 2, and write-in 1 got 1, and so did write-in 2. And hold on. Okay, I see. In round 1, the write-ins didn't have votes. Okay, great. Okay, so the numbers you see scrolling up the screen now are from 2020, and they help sort of guide our walk through this because it's handy to see on the left here what we were doing 4 years ago and what the numbers were then. And here, the number of delegates won in round one, we already discussed, was 0 for Sherman so far, 8 for Stein so far, 0 for Zavala so far, and none of the above also has zeros, as do the write-ins. So far, Jill Stein has 8 of our 9 delegates, which is pretty intuitive given the read and our review of the ballots. That's not unreasonable. It's plausible. Okay, remove, it says here, write-ins that are below the threshold and distribute. Well, I say write-ins there because often they're the ones that have the fewest votes. But the process here is the candidates with the fewest first round votes are Sherman and Zavala, each of whom has a single first round vote. And so the usual process, I'm going to change the writing here from removing candidates that are below the threshold. Okay, and redistribute their votes. The one vote they, or the support that person provided will now leave the candidates who have the least first round support and go to redistribution.
That still strikes me as unclear because you don't remove them all at once, do you? You remove the lowest ones first?
Yes, if there are lowest ones, they would go first. In this case,
Sherman
both
and Zavala.
Zavala and Sherman
Right.
have a single first round vote.
Yeah.
Clearly, they have less votes than none of the above.
Right.
Typically, you would remove the lowest when there isn't a clear lowest. Some other process has to decide which one gets eliminated, or you can eliminate both. This is a good case for our moderator to make a.
Well, yeah, I'm still confused because I thought that now you'd go to calculate the second round, and even though, and then those points would be added to whatever the other candidates had in the first round. But you explained to me before that's not a point system. I get that.
Yeah.
Although to me it seems like, points are being awarded, and those
Correct.
points.
I'll grant you points are being awarded, but for instance, here, if your candidate you preferred most isn't capable of winning, then essentially the points you have, Mary, get used for your second choice.
Right, but now
So you don't lose any.
didn't that second choice row get separated from the first choice row? Didn't the data in the second row get separated from the data in the first row?
No, we still know that the here, for instance, ballot 1 and ballot 18 have Stein first and none of the above second. So that's still the case.
If their first choice had been Sherman or one of the write-ins or whatever, and their second choice is none of the above, when you eliminate that, you eliminate them from the first choice ranking, and that vote rolls over to their second choice.
Correct.
Right? But if their first choice was Stein and then none of the above, or it would be a little different. All right.
Yeah. So I can show you here in row 23, we currently have ballot 11, in which Sherman is ranked first. And down below at the very bottom of the list, we have Zavala being ranked first on ballot 15. So we need to decide whether to eliminate both of these candidates at once, which would be common if you have a tie at the bottom, or do we want to choose some other process, such as a random number generator, or a roll of the dice, or a flip a coin? And
What
ideally, these
happens-
are things we decide
happens-
ahead.
What happens if you eliminated them and then they were everyone's second choice?
Like Sherman is pretty popular as a second choice.
Yeah,
Yes.
More popular than Zavala.
yeah, looking at the
Um,
second choices, Sherman had 9, and Zavala had 5, number
Mhm.
2. So we seem to have like 4 options, I guess, for the last delegate. Stein, because she was second place on a few ballots. Zavala, Sherman, Zavala, or an uncommitted last choice. Those seem
Yes.
to be the 4 possibilities. And just thinking, going back to the question of how can we make these choices best represent what our voters expressed in these ballots, I would think we would want to look at what the second choice placements
Yeah.
look like.
Jean Dismay ran in a race here in town and has a strong opinion on this. I'll share the story. Wyndham has long had several parties, and all of them are in second place except the Democrats. We're all fairly equal if we're not Democrats. Anyway, it's common to run for mayor and have 4 or 5 candidates. And it's happened before that you can win the seat of mayor with less than 40% of the vote. And so when we talk about ranked choice voting, Jean's very concerned that she, for instance, was likely the second choice for many candidates, for many voters. And she objects to removing the lowest one by procedure only without considering these second votes. So there's a process in ranked choice voting that supports this. And basically, you look at the last 2 and say, what other support do they have? Could they even possibly win a delegate by looking at their second rankings? In this case, for instance, we might look at, well, how many times is Zavala mentioned anywhere? And how many times is Sherman mentioned anywhere? And that would be
best represent the intent of the voters, yeah.
Yeah, right. You got it, Mary. That's the concept here. In this sort of best of 2 bottom, as it's called. Best of 2 bottom would basically have us look in this tie situation, which only happens now and then, at, I don't really need to eliminate both of these characters. After all, one of them might be a very popular second. Maybe I should look at that. So if you'd like, I can get you some information on
So
who do
my
we have here.
my comment here, don't scroll away from that yet.
Yep.
Since Sherman got more second rank votes than Zavala,
Mm-hmm.
suggestion would be to eliminate Zavala first
Yes,
before we eliminate Sherman and see what happens when we eliminate the Zavala vote.
correct. Yeah, and I think that would be the best of 2 bottom approach, essentially. You're saying, I am about to eliminate somebody. Am I eliminating the correct one? And to some extent, that can be done by saying, does Zavala have a chance of winning? Does Sherman have a chance of winning this last delegate? So I see only 5 votes for Zavala in the second ranking. And for Sherman, I see 9.
Have we already eliminated Williamson, who has?
No, there were no first choice votes for Williams.
Okay, but if we're
And
looking
no
at
first
second
choice for the other write-in Jean.
Okay.
So they haven't even come up yet as counted because earlier choices are still being used.
Okay.
So in the best of two bottom scenario, although Zavala and Sherman both have a single vote in first ranking, Sherman clearly has more second ranking votes. And notably, this makes it really easy for us to think about. Notice that they all have Stein first. So, so if we want to eliminate only one of the two lowest voter candidates, that choice would likely be Zavala. And since we've named Mary as moderator, we should hear, do we eliminate both? Or do we instead eliminate only Zavala and go into round two?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense.
Okay, so we have a decision. In an ideal system, all these rules would get published ahead, all the decisions would be made ahead. But since we're fairly new to this proportional single transferable vote approach to voting, we're going to run into situations like this where we have to make some rules as we go. And that's why I wanted to have a moderator who was not emotionally involved, who wasn't manipulating the numbers, etc.
I would go so far as to say that if there were more delegates available than the one to be decided, for example, if the first place winner only had 20 delegates, 20, and only got, 6 or 7 of the delegates, that you should have to calculate all places before anybody was dropped. That you should, run both the second and third place before dropping anyone.
Yeah, there's a way of doing that, Mary, where, for instance, on the off chance that a candidate will eventually get close to having a delegate, if enough things happen. One quick way to see, is it possible for a candidate to get a single delegate, is to say, well, how many times are they mentioned in any ranking?
Right.
Do they have any shot of getting a delegate? And in this case, Sherman and Zavala are both mentioned enough times so that, yeah, if they had been mentioned earlier or more, or and so on, they could have potentially gotten a delegate. They're not complete last placers. They're just competitive last placers. Either of them might have gotten there. The write-ins, for instance, though, have a single vote, not even in first rank. And so if one were going to look at this quickly, one would know that there's no way they're going to get a delegate. They just can't get there from here. They don't have enough support. On the other hand, none of the above got mentioned 4 times, almost as often as Zavala. And so, it could possibly happen. It doesn't seem very likely. I take it that the group consensus with Mary as moderator saying so is to remove Zavala and go forward.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do this. Remembering that the last time I did this was a while ago. Let's see here. Okay, so what's going to happen is Zavala, who currently has 9 points, is going to lose them. And those are going to get picked up by Zavala's
Second choice.
yeah, right. So here we go. So let's find the voter where Zavala.
Yeah,
There's
that's
ballot 15. Right. So in round 2, hold on, I have to do some
Yeah, you didn't.
labeling here. You probably saw that, David. I have the wrong initials. Hold on. Just updating the labeling here for 2024. None of the numbers are changing. One of the interesting things about doing it in a spreadsheet is all the formulas can be seen by many people. Whereas with a compiled program, it's very hard to know what the logic is and to validate it. So, on the other hand, it's very easy in a spreadsheet to have human error introduced somehow. You make a typo. So mixed blessings. All right, so on ballot 15 here, that had Zavala in the first place, round one, declare any delegates won. Okay, hold on. And okay, so in round one, I'm going to document that popular rank one candidate Jill got 8 delegates in round one. Okay. Okay. In the next step here, removing candidates that are below threshold, we decided Zavala, lower of 2, bottom approach. And we're going to redistribute those 9. Hold on. So in round 2, ballot 15 is going to lose 9 in the column for Zavala, which was the ranking 1. I'm going to highlight that as a gray. We've essentially eliminated this vote. You see here on ballot 15, I have flagged that vote as no longer counts. The next ranking for ballot 15 in second place was Stein. So here in round 2, for candidate Stein, here at column A1, I'm going to add 9 points, essentially making ballot 15 no longer vote for Zavala, but instead now vote for Jill. So this voters was able to vote for his preference or their preference without any penalty for having expressed a rare preference. And their second choice is now being implemented with 9 for Jill Stein.
Okay, now I understand how that works.
Okay, thank you. Great. And you can see -9 for Zavala, +9 for Stein. And this is basically all the work we've done in round 2 has now gone that way. If you look over here in the left where you see a sea of zeros, these are the sum of all the rounds. Stein has moved up to 8.64 delegates. So because Zavala's second choice was Stein, Jill's got a lot of the votes at this point. And this other choice, none of the above, is not quite yet at a delegate. So in this moment, I don't have any to award in this round because nobody has met the threshold for their next delegate. Stein didn't get to 9. None of the above didn't get to 1. Sherman didn't get to 1. But that's our progress for round 2. So I'm checking my notes here. Second choice.
So So nothing else is done with all the other votes cast in the second ranking?
Not
Uh,
yet.
Not yet,
Okay,
because so far we only did one action, and that was to eliminate Zavala, and that impacted only voter 15, because that voter was the only one that had Zavala ranked first.
so
So
during the process of tabulating that second ranking column,
Mhm.
that could change, right? Jill's numbers could go up or down, the decimal.
Yes,
I get it,
Yeah,
I get it, okay.
I don't think they can go down.
right. They can only go up. Jill's pretty close to the ninth delegate already, but we haven't eliminated all the low candidates yet. We just made sure that we got the Zavala voters' opinion
Okay,
counted.
Got
So far, there's only been one transfer of a vote. This is called single transferable vote. And in this case, voter 15 got their vote transferred from Zavala to Stein.
got it.
And that's basically the point of single transferable vote. The people who voted for Stein first, they already got their vote in, so theirs don't get transferred. That makes
I see.
sense.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm asking for me
And
because
Zavala, voter 15 got to vote for Zavala without any penalty. He made his
Right.
point, has expressed himself, and without penalty, his next choice, Stein, will be counted. So
Right.
he lost nothing by listing an unpopular candidate first.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this video will serve as an educational tool for many, in the future. So I hope my questions are not, holding us up too much.
No, gosh, this can take hours, but these are good questions. We need more people to understand how to do this. The choices I've suggested aren't necessarily the only good choices one could make for how to implement this. One could create a committee that practices this and experiments with different ways of doing things.
Doug, I don't think you finished filling in that cell, the comment.
Yes, you're correct. I need to look at this. Second choice done looked right. Okay. Removing candidates that are below threshold, Zavala, lower of two bottom approach, and distribute. Okay, and we did that. That's what we did. Second choice, Stein, used at ballot 15 instead of the and this just sort of documents what's going on. If we ever implement this on a grand scale for a state, obviously there's a lot of minutia going on here behind the scenes in a computer. And it will help if people have already done this on a moderate scale. And it would help if some log created by the software could show, oh, I had 15,000 votes for this unpopular candidate for governor. They will now be go to their second choices, and some of those were this and some of those were that. This is very simplistic, having only one eliminated this time. Okay. Great. Okay, so next step. I still have a delegate left to give. Now we have left in first rank, moved up to 24 now for Stein, 2 for none of the above, and 1 for Sherman. The usual approach here for ranked choice voting would say that Sherman has less than none of the above, And so Sherman is the next one to be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes some sense because none of the above had more first round support than Sherman did, despite Sherman having a lot of second round support. But that vote already was used to give Stein 8 delegates,
Right.
which people chose to list Stein first. So that would normally mean, in my mind, that our next removal in round 3 would be Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now,
Here.
yeah, I understand Mary's thought there was that, well, it looks like Sherman had pretty broad support in terms of second rank votes.
Yes.
More so than none of the above. But the two people who voted none of the above felt very strongly about it to put it in their first rank.
First rank and
Yeah.
no other ranks, which makes sense, by the way.
So I don't think I agree. We need to eliminate Sherman before we eliminate none of the above.
Right. And we'll see where that takes us, but that would be my choice as well. Are people comfortable with that?
I think so.
Okay. Well, that would be the usual process we advertise for single transferable vote. We will now transfer the vote for ballot 11, and if there were others for Sherman, we would use them too. But in round 3, I am going to remove 9 votes earlier awarded to Sherman and instead move them to the second ranking, which is also Stein. So that's all I had planned to do for round 3. You know, this is a step-by-step process. Let me update my notes. Redistribute. Second. Yeah, second choice Stein used at ballot 11 instead of Sherman. Okay, and let me reveal enough of the summary here. Okay. Here we have it, folks. We're at the end. By having removed Sherman's single first rank vote or ballot and replaced it with Stein, Stein now has 225 of the votes. That meets the threshold 9 times. And even though there are some stray votes for Noda left, Noda did not get enough to get that last delegate. They were, shall we say, the runner-up, the last one standing before the last decision was made. So none of the above came very close. Had there been a third ballot with none of the above would have very likely have gotten a delegate. Pretty close.
Interesting.
This was a pretty crisp example of single transferable vote. Here we had only 2 ballots that had to go to their second choice. In both cases, those second choices went to Stein. That means that Stein had 25 out of the 27 first rankings after, or highest rankings that remained. 25 out of 27. That's pretty high.
I get it. I get it now.
Okay.
Yep. So the gist of it is, my conclusion would be that we have successfully gone through transferring from less popular candidates to their next choices. That consolidated the votes so that Stein managed to get yet another delegate after the first 8. It Could have been 6 and got to 7, but in this case, it was 8 and got to 9. And that while there are still a few other things out there, they aren't sufficient to ever get to a full delegate.
Okay.
Yeah, that was easier than 2020, and in some ways made it fairly easy as a training. It's not as deep an example as we would have had from 2020, but I have some stuff down below here that I did in 2020 that I would need to update to sort of illustrate the situation. For one thing, I'd need to get the 2024 candidates' names in here.
Help.
Yeah, that would help. Gee, Doug, well, it's a big spreadsheet. I got this far.
And I'm, you're so brilliant in what you do and I'm the language person, so I want to tell you about 2 typos,
Okay.
and it's up on the top part where you were explaining right away. The word preference jumped out at me, and the word winning. I was like,
Okay.
oh, that says whining, but
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I noticed it didn't have the H.
Well,
So,
there's a lot of whining by the losers.
right, right. Then it would
That's
be
a pretty
missing the
funny
H.
Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
but,
but I appreciate you, Doug. You're so brilliant in what you're doing. Thank you for taking the time, but you and David, to explain it in ways that help me understand, because I would have assumed that a delegate would have gone to none of the above or Sherman.
yes, that would have been a really likely guess, but the intent was to let people vote for unpopular candidates and nonetheless award delegates to
their second
where
choice.
the voters expressed themselves.
Right.
I mean, this was pretty overwhelming to get 23 out of the 27 ballots on the first ranking, and then you're the second ranking for the ones who got transferred. That's pretty darn convincing. You got 25 out of 27.
I mean, I would have, I'm one of the what do you call it?
Electors.
One of the electors. Yeah. I was going to say one of the delegates, one of the electors, and I would have gladly cast the vote for whoever needed to be represented.
Yeah.
But it's kind of clear here. We have a clear winner, so there's no debate about it.
Yeah. I'm going to try to find that typo. Let's see. First round of presidential. Oh my, yes, Mary. Yes, that's got extra letters in there. I think that
Like a combination of preference and seance.
Yeah, well, okay. And you mentioned another typo that
Winning
and whining.
Winning with 2 N's or 1
Yeah.
N?
It needs 2.
It needs 2. Okay, so I'll look for 1. Well, there we go. Threshold for whining. Okay.
And
Well,
actually, I think
we better set a pretty high threshold for whining. Okay.
Preference still wrong.
I think preference is ENCE.
Okay. Here we go. I know where that one is. And I'm pretty sure that I'm the worst speller in the party, so I will believe any of you. Okay. But I am comfortable with numbers, and I think our process went pretty smoothly. I will tweak this area from row 60 onward, which is mostly statistical, trying to help people who want to understand what happened in a more condensed fashion than this huge spreadsheet that sprawls across screens.
Yeah, it's hard on the phone, Martha, I don't even know. Are you able to follow along what he's doing there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, well, Martha's she has a big sheet of paper laid out across her table, and she reproduced the whole spreadsheet according to Doug's description.
Oh.
Yes, in Latin.
No,
In
no,
Latin?
Well, this video can get posted to our, Green Party of Connecticut YouTube channel.
Yeah, I recommend you do that.
So I think that would be a good idea because it's good as a training video and not just a show of transparency for this one.
Right,
one
right. We should
time.
have thought about that before we criticize people's handwriting.
Oh, whoops. Okay, well,
Forgive us.
get out the editor. Yeah, okay. Okay, so if you're watching me type and wondering why I'm doing all that, down at the bottom here, I'm trying to create sort of a little summary of how many were in rank 1 and so on. But I don't have that in formula, so I'm going to do that the hard way. And that may take me a little while, and you're welcome to watch. But basically, I've got the candidates' names in the same order we use them elsewhere. Sherman, Stein, Zavala, none of the above. Write-in 1, Jean Dismay. Write-in 2, Marianne Williamson. There were no other candidates. So I'm just cleaning up the totals here and making the cute little statistics work.
So to sum it up, although there was one first place ranking for Sherman and one for Zabala, and they had a good number in the second place, when everything was tallied, Jill still took the 9 delegates.
Correct. It was interesting who the 9th delegate might have been. With different rules and different processes, one might have seen, and certainly another ballot,
Right.
Yeah.
one more strong vote would have influenced the 9th delegate, in my opinion.
All right.
Possibly none of the above would have been awarded a delegate in that circumstance. Possibly, one of the less common, Zavala or Sherman, might have reached a delegate, but just wasn't there this time because the second choice for those candidates happened to both be the same, Stein.
Right. All right.
If one
So
of them
I
had
think
been none of the above or the other candidate, that could have kept it going longer.
Mhm. So I make a suggestion that we end the recording at this point.
Okay.
And I think we've done a good job and, as far as ensuring transparency and the integrity of our results. And I want to thank Doug. Well, you guys made me moderator, so I'm feeling like I should wrap up that official, putting a seal of approval on and everything before I hop off. But I'm just happy that I saw the email just in the nick of time and that I was in your company this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Mary. I will shut off the recording.